Joie Seldon, emotions. What are they? When I polled some friends before talking to Joy, who's who wrote emotions in owner's manual, what are emotions? I wonder what your answer is if I ask you what are emotions. I could tell you what my friends said, and they said feelings. I wonder if that was your answer. But she is a somatic counseling, and she does somatic counseling. And um, what is that? What is somatic? What I never heard of it. Um, is our emotions biological? Are they art? Uh, how do they relate in business? Making your emotions work at work. How do they factor in? Fascinating discussion. Her take on discipline with emotions was so extraordinary and so unique. I'm still smiling about it. Never heard that take before. You're wondering emotions. How could we possibly talk about emotions for less than an hour? It'll zoom right by. You'll be fascinated. It was a great discussion with Joy. I hope to have her on again. I really enjoyed this conversation. I love learning about her and her work and what she does and how she helps people. You're going to enjoy it as well. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission: how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Joie Seldon, thank you so much for your time today. Emotional. Emotions. I talked to, knowing that I was going to talk to you, and one of your great videos said define emotions. So I just did a little survey to some friends before talking to you, and they all gave the same answer that you said they would give, which is feelings. So let's just start. What are
Yeah.
emotions? And of course, let's hear, please.
Well, people are correct when they say feelings, emotions are feelings, but then I ask,
Hmm.
what are feelings? Because we know we're having an emotional experience because we feel it in our body. So my definition of emotions, and this has come from many, many years of study, experience, work, etc., that emotions are a physiological information system. They are bringing you information about your relationship to whatever it is that you're experiencing. And they do that in order to prompt you to some kind of action that is optimally beneficial for your survival
Hmm.
and your well being.
How scientific.
Yes, there's a lot of science in it. They seem to be ethereal, mysterious, just this thing that happens to us, but they're actually grounded in something that's incredibly practical.
So how much of emotions are art versus science?
Well, the science is the foundation. What are emotions? How do
Hmm.
they manifest in the body? Why do we feel physically different when we're experiencing sadness than when we're experiencing fear, for example, or anger? They have very different energies. They activate different systems in the body to move you towards a different type of action. The art is what emotional intelligence is really all about, and what a lot of people don't understand, just how profound and deep and wide it goes. So, art is that ability as we grow as human beings, as we evolve and develop our ability to utilize this information that the emotions are bringing us, to make the best actions, to make conscious choices, to integrate who we are wholly as human beings, and then to interact with the
Hmm.
world in the best way possible.
So the next time I'm having a discussion with, the girlfriend or somebody, and they start getting emotional, I can start to inform them that it's your physiological information system that's occurring here.
Well, you could do that. You could also just be
Mm.
present and be curious
Yeah.
about what they're feeling, and then talk about the the scientific part of it. But it is something I start with clients
Mm.
and with students in my course. I start with the education piece. So, anybody who comes in for private coaching, we start with this foundation of the emotional education, so that we have a common language, and so that when they're moving forward, they have a grounding in what it's all
And
about.
of course,
So,
you're geared towards more the work environment, the more, this is your area.
yes, I started out, I was an actor and acting teacher for many years, and became a somatic therapist when I got involved in the emotions, like educating myself about emotions. And I discovered somatic psychology fascinating. Learned a lot about the physiology of emotions in that. But then gradually I became, over time, I became a coach, which I really love doing, and found that myself in the business world. And it's a place that's so needing this understanding of our humanity and who we are. It's amazing the results that people get in terms of their careers when they have more
Mm.
mastery of their
And I was
emotions.
very unfamiliar with somatic, that term somatic until I understood about it. Can
Yeah.
you expand on that?
Well, soma,
Right.
yeah, and I was too. I never heard of it when I discovered it. Soma is the whole person, including the body. So it's body, mind, and spirit, emotions, all of it together. So somatic psychology approaches whatever issues you have, whatever blocks, or we all have trauma, some people more than others. All these things that we carry with us, we don't carry them just in our mind or our memory or our thoughts, we carry them in the cells of our body. So there are many different modalities, different approaches in the somatic approach, but it's really fascinating. It's endless, and it's been very helpful in me in terms of my own life. Me continuing to grow and then working with people, you can get to things that you can't get to
Mm.
necessarily intellectually, or you can understand it intellectually, but nothing
Hmm.
changes until you actually release that uh, impact of that experience that's in your body.
Fascinating. And so you get a master's in somatic counseling, psychology, and
Hmm.
then now you're coaching. So the difference between a therapist and a coach.
It's a good question because with the therapy, you're obviously people are there to dig in and go deep, and so part of that is one of the distinctions that I found is that with therapy, I'm evoking the my clients to discover their own healing. It's you draw out the healing. I don't heal
Mm.
people as a therapist. In coaching, I'm not there to heal them. I can be more direct in calling out things that I see, in naming things and asking questions.
Hmm.
It's close, but often the focus is different. And so I don't start out to go into any kind of therapeutic mode as a coach because I have that background and because my work is grounded in the emotions work. A lot of times, what will come out in the process is the client, and it's so common that they have some kind of childhood trauma. It might be a accident or an illness or a family issue, or there's all kinds of different traumas on all different kinds of levels, but that's part of what is keeping them from moving forward in their
Hmm.
career. For example, their ability to speak up to authority might be grounded in the relationship they had with their parents. And I don't go directly into that, but because I have a context in my own experience, I have ways to get to that are less
Mm.
therapeutic.
Somebody once described therapy as going into the past and coaches moving forward. Too
Hmm.
simply? Yeah.
There's a truth in that. Yeah, there's truth in that.
Take
And of course, with therapy, it's always about wanting to go forward in
mm,
a different way than your past. But yes, the focus is not on the past, it is on what's going on in the present that's going to change or get you the
hmm,
future that you really want. So we always start with what are your goals or what is your vision?
hmm.
What do you want to
So
accomplish?
how do you make that shift to to the business world?
Well, the thing about being in the business
Mm,
world is you're a human being. Everybody is human and everybody has stuff. Everybody has a history, conditioning, beliefs, attitudes, experiences. And so, for example, I have a lot of people who come to me to say, I'm thinking of quitting my job because their manager or a colleague, and sometimes it's a direct report, it's an employee, but often it's a peer, it's a colleague, or it's their manager, it's upper management of the company that they're in that is
mm,
driving them crazy, that doesn't listen, or there's confusion, or they don't feel safe, they don't feel like they know how to speak up, and they want to contribute. They want to
hmm,
give what they have to give, and they don't know how. They feel stuck, or I mean, I've had some cases where clients have actually been sabotaged by a colleague,
wow.
undermining them with things at work. So sometimes it can get kind of ugly. Most of the time, it's not that. It's just your average daily. Not A lot of the issues come from
Hmm,
not being able to communicate, not knowing how to communicate at work, and not having a manager who really listens. So that's one of the skill sets that I really focus on. All right, now you're in touch with these feelings. Like I had a client recently. She was thinking of quitting. She was working in a new role in the company directly under the CEO.
hmm,
She didn't like the way he talked to her. Well, he had never had anybody directly under him. He'd started the company, he was the founder, and he had done a lot of the work. So it was a growing company. And she realized that she was not only angry, she had fear. And so once she was able to understand those different emotions and get clear about why they were happening, we did some role play around how to communicate in a way that makes the other person feel respected and safe. She had a conversation with her boss, and he completely got it and
wow.
changed how he talked to her. And over time, she ended up having other things she wanted to say. So now she had this experience, went back to him again, told him some other things. And then he ended up saying, well, what job title do you want? Let's get rid of these things that you don't want to do, because she was
Mm,
handling too many different things. Let's focus on what you want. And so she got what she really wanted,
wow.
just learning how to be present with her feelings and
Do
then
you find
communicate.
often that it's the employee that needs your coaching and your help, or do leaders seek your help for their staff, for their body?
Often it's the
Mm,
employee comes directly to me, and that can be senior project managers, executives, vice presidents in big companies. So they're like VPs, but they're a mid-level VP, so to speak. They're coming to me because of issues that are going on in the company. The CEOs that I worked with have all been smaller companies. So it's an interesting thing because I think a lot of CEOs and really senior management, they feel so much pressure about what it is they have to be handling that they're not thinking so much about getting emotional intelligence training or coaching. But oftentimes, when someone comes to me and gets the benefit of the coaching, then they actually manage up, and sometimes it shifts how the upper echelons communicate and
And how do you
behave.
know when you need it, Joy?
I think people might. I mean, for me, it was always because I wasn't satisfied with whatever it was that was
Mm,
going on in my life. That's what drove me to keep seeking. Why is this happening? Why am I not happy? Why am I not fulfilled? For my clients, what I often find is that they have the same basic issue. They don't feel fulfilled. They're intelligent. They're educated. They have ambition, and that ambition is not being satisfied because they feel stuck. Sometimes in the bigger companies, it's just, these big companies, they have protocols that are not necessarily working for everybody, and they don't instigate, and this is something I really advocate, is for companies to set up a protocol for communication. People, it's not nothing new. I've read it a million times. People don't leave the
right.
company, they leave their manager. And a lot of times it's because the manager is very good at what they did and they get promoted, but they never are given real
Mm,
people management skills. So they don't really know. It's not because they're bad people, but they just don't know. Uh, and then sometimes they're fairly dysfunctional and they're kind of mean, but but oftentimes it's just because they're just doing the best they can and they haven't been given the training that they need of how to communicate and setting up a real protocol so that people can
hmm.
express themselves.
And your name, of course, you have an acronym that addresses emotions.
Yes, the my
Yeah.
system that I created over many, many, many years of study and my own experience and learning and coaching and working with people. It's My name is spelled Joie, and that came out of in high school when I was so unhappy I couldn't stand being called
Uh,
Joy. So in my French class, I changed the spelling to kind of distance myself from that name Joy somehow, even though it's still pronounced Joy. It felt a little better. But it's the joy of integrated emotions, Joie. And that integration is what really is key, is the recognition that all of the emotions that we're experiencing have value. And we need to be integrating them into our process, not to give them power, not to let the emotions see. The problem with is that people often are in they try to suppress emotions that are uncomfortable, that they don't know how to deal with, that they're angry and they don't know what to do with that, and they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, they don't want to make waves, they don't want to get in trouble. There are many, many reasons, whether they're conscious or not, of what's going to happen. And so they just try to feel better, get over it, move past it. And the problem is that energy of that emotion is still lingering in the body and in the psyche and in the back of the mind, in ways that undermines all the action moving forward. And so instead of trying to get rid of those emotions, turn towards them, but you are the one in
hmm.
charge, not the emotion. I say that emotions are really like a servant. They're there to serve you, but you're the one who is meant to be the CEO of your emotions and lead them, not have them lead you, but to use their expertise to help you make the best
It
choices.
it it seems so logical when you describe it, Joy. It seems so logical, but I'm an employer, so I started my company back in the '90s, and I've had great employees. Some came, some left. But as I look back, and as I was thinking, as preparing to talk to you, I'm thinking, should I have supplied this kind of coaching to some of my employees? Should I have, your emotions are your emotions. I never really kind of separated them or thought they were you have stress, is stress related to emotions. I guess I'm just having a hard time kind of collecting it all together. I never kind of individualized emotions. I just kind of lumped it in with stress or busyness or skills, etc. Probably a common problem.
Yes, and that's really what most people do because that's our society. It's our world. I mean, the idea of emotion education is is new. It's very new, and they're now actually programs. 6 Seconds is a wonderful company. It does training in schools so that kids can learn this growing up. But it's the norm to be like that. And so that's where my kind of discovery was in my own gift of being able to experience my emotions fully. And the more fully I experienced my emotions and was willing to be in those very uncomfortable spaces of anger or fear or shame by being present with them, I would move through that. I would have insights and understanding and move through that and make better and better choices for myself. And I've completely changed my life from this very unhappy child. I mean, I had
Wow.
ulcers as a kid because of all of the repressed feelings that I had. So it is
Mm,
sounded a little intellectual, but part of what I do is actually help you to understand and practice these feelings and get that this, what you call stress, this is a great example. This is very
mm,
common stress or anxiety. I feel anxious or I feel stressful. Well, what what is that?
mm,
What is that? It's a kind of a general term, stress. We can know that there's physical stress. I'm tired. I've got a deadline. I've got 25 things I have to accomplish before Thursday at 6. There's that kind of sense of stress. But there's also the fear that I'm not going to get it done, the fear that I'm going to get in trouble if I don't get it come. I'm going to be disappointing someone. That makes me sad. And then I have anger because this deadline, and this happens a lot in the tech world. There's some new launch of a new product and there's a deadline and everybody's working really hard to get it done and they're not going to get it done on time in the way of the quality that they want. And so there's anger that comes up. So this thing that we call stress now has some anger and it has some fear and there's a little sadness there and there's some shame.
hmm.
What is all of that? Fear. If your life is directly threatened, we've
Right.
heard of fight or flight.
Yes,
Are
yes, of
you
course.
familiar with that term? Fight or flight. That's our saving when, it's on a very primal level that it saves our life. Fear and anger can save our life. So there are protector emotions. But in our day-to-day interaction, when we feel fear, its messages, pay attention, something's happening, something's changing. And if we stay slow down enough to pay attention, then we can see what's really going on and utilize more of our intellect and our understanding. And anger, which is a big
Mm,
one in the world, causes a lot of, there's a lot of association with anger. It's about violence, it's about aggression. But in our day to day interactions, when anger comes up, its basic messages: no, I don't want this. I don't like this. It's a protector of our sense of
hmm,
autonomy, of our values, and its basic message is that it's a boundary setter. It's saying, "Stop, no, wait a minute, something's happened here and I don't like it." And then again, it's the slowing down to understand, is that because your
hmm.
behavior is not appropriate? Or is it because something's happened out there that triggers an old memory, a trauma from my past, something that I'm bringing to the plate that I'm totally unconscious of? Because mostly, we have 6,000 thoughts a day on average, and the vast majority are unconscious or automatic.
6,000 thoughts a day and some are unconscious. Very interesting. Y- And your book,
Yeah.
Emotions and Owner's Manual, is there a lot of
Mhm.
study done on emotions? It's so new to me, Joy.
Yes, yes, there are studies that are done. There's more and more people out there that are engaged on a
Mm,
scientific level, doing studies. My book is actually comes from about 40 years of my personal experience. It comes from my own journey, self-taught. Then I have a then I
Yeah.
got a BA in humanities. When I was much older, I went back to school. I quit school to go be a movie star in Hollywood. And when I didn't, when I failed at that, that was like an epiphany. Like, well,
Mm.
why didn't I succeed? That's part of what set me on my own journey. So been in therapy. I've done a lot of reading. I've done courses, and then I got my master's in somatic counseling psychology. So that taught me so much about the interface between our body, our
Hmm.
mind, and our emotions, how we think, and how we feel. So I've been on this mission since then to really educate people, and so that's what the book's about. It's a fundamentals. It is a
Yeah.
workbook. There's exercises, and it focuses on the four cornerstone emotions of sadness, fear, anger, and joy.
And I love your you know, your leadership on this, your energy, your focus on it. And you know, I was being a little flippant before when I mentioned, you know, man and woman, and you know, you're being you know, biological. But what, let's just dive in that a little bit more. I mean, what should men understand about coping with women's emotions?
Oh, this is so important. It's actually something I really want to get even
Mhm.
more into because I think that we have certain things in our nature, women and men, that are different and they're there for a reason. And the more we can understand each other and really work with the strengths that we each have, and this is, I realize when I'm categorizing all women in one bucket and all men in one bucket, and we're all vastly complex creatures. But now in my own marriage, I've learned a tremendous amount and been able to see, and we all are emotional, but based on just back from the cave days and who we are, men tend to process things internally, and women tend to process experience through the tribe, through the people around them externally. So women tend to be more aware of what's going on outside of themselves in the relationships, what's going on between people, more issues around uh, speaking up and being, we've been, of course, we've been repressed for a lot of years by the patriarchy, and that is nothing against men. I think men are wonderful.
Some
My
would.
husband is wonderful, and he is very, very male because he doesn't get emotional in the same way I do. And he does when I'm in a state, sometimes he is there trying to
Hmm.
help me. And he does. And sometimes it's like, just be quiet. That's not helpful. I need to just express my feelings. So, what I think men need to understand is that they don't need to
Hmm.
fix anything, and that if they can hold space for women to express themselves and talk through what's going on and really listen, not just pay lip service. I think that having a dedicated time, I think it's a good for me. Worked in my marriage, and I think it's very good in terms of the business world for managers of teams to have times where you set aside, it's like the one to one, but the one to one is not just about what are the deadlines and what are you doing in your work, but how are you feeling? What challenges are you having?
Hmm.
Where do you feel stuck? And have it be a safe place
Hmm.
because we all have vulnerabilities and nobody's perfect, but there becomes this fear of, if I confess that I'm confused right now or I'm struggling right now with something, then I'm afraid you're going to be judging me as being somehow weak or inept, incapable, and I don't want that to happen, so I'm just going to stuff this. So I think if men can recognize that we're all emotional and that the emotions have value, and to you will do some educating, but to also find a way to, with the women that in lives, whether it's the working with them or in their personal lives, to create some space to have conversation when they're not in a fight or when they're not in an upset, just to talk about how are you going to talk, how
Hmm.
are you going to express yourselves.
Sound advice. Yeah,
Does
absolutely.
that
Yeah,
help?
I
Does
think
that
so.
Yeah. Yeah, we had talk time in our
Really?
marriage, once a week for
And
about 3 years, and we worked through some pretty
wow.
intense stuff,
So
my
one person
husband and I,
talks, one person listens?
but it created trust. One we Yes, and we set up
Wow.
some guidelines, and that was that we would not express anger at each other without
Hmm.
asking for permission first. Because a big issue around emotion, especially things like anger and the hairier ones, is creating safety for the other person and for ourselves. So we would say, okay, I have some anger I'd like to express. Is that okay? Now, that may sound kind of formal to somebody, it's your husband, but yes, but this is what creates a sense of respect and safety. And so then we go, okay, yeah, go ahead. And what I learned, my big lesson in this, was that I could express that energy of that anger full out. And then sometimes it would be my husband going, oh,
Hmm.
yeah, you're right. I did that and I apologize. And sometimes I would say, oh, this is my stuff. I was projecting onto you that you were wrong, but I'm responsible here. And so I learned about myself by having, and you don't have to have a lot of relationships like that, but if you have somebody you have that kind of safety with, and it got to the point after a while, it'd be like, okay, I'm going to express some anger. My husband would go, okay, let me just get ready. Okay, go ahead. I would express it, and then we would both
Hmm.
burst out laughing. It became fun, which sounds strange, but it would, because it was so freeing.
Sounds wonderful. In intelligence, we have an IQ, an intelligence quotient. Is there an emotional quotient?
Mhm. I think we are all innately emotionally intelligent, and
Hmm.
we do have different temperaments. It gets conditioned out of us in
How
society,
so?
in cultures, the
Mm.
cultures of the world. Oh, be quiet. Don't. I was told,
Mm.
be seen
Mm.
and not heard. I'm a child. You don't have anything worthwhile saying. And I was a very sensitive child, and so I learned to just stuff it in. That's why I had ulcers. And so that there's a lot of these beliefs that we have, and it gets passed down generation after generation. Where it all started, how it started. I mean, we're an experiment and
Sure.
process, I think, the human race. So we carry all of these conditioning with us, and it happens in schools, it happens in families and religions, and
So is there an
yeah.
actual number system for an emotional quotient? Is there like an IQ? Is there a rating there? There's nothing like that. No.
No, no, it's the quality of your life, the
Mm.
quality of your relationships, how well you're able to deal with situations, creating a way that you can have flow. I actually teach people an exercise called the emotional
Mm.
fluidity exercise. So you get practice feeling these emotions in your body in kind of like a playful way, like you're a kid at play acting. And so that you train your body to allow this energy to move through you, because if you allow your emotions to come and you recognize what they're saying,
Hmm.
they just move on. The one that can linger is sadness when you've had a big loss. Someone that you love dies, and that sadness can come up for years when you think about them, but you're not carrying it around with you all the time. But usually, anger or fear, things like that, if you deal with them, they
Hmm.
come and they go. They're over with.
And you kinda mentioned you alluded to some trauma that occurred, females were told to be quiet and things like that, and I think through that, perhaps when people think of emotions, they think more negatively than positive. Is that the case?
Absolutely. And we have a lot of languaging that says
Right,
that's a negative
right.
emotion and that's a positive. Joy, happiness,
Mm,
excitement, those are positive. Fear,
mm.
anxiety, stress,
Depression.
sad, even sadness. Sometimes, oh, you can be sad for a
Mm,
little while, but not too long. And certainly anger. Oh, shame. Oh, that's a negative emotion. And that labeling prevents us. I mean, I don't want to experience something that's negative, so I'm going to try to get rid of it instead of going, oh, it's bringing me
Hmm.
valuable information. And anger, because I'm very quick to anger. I suppressed it for so long, and then
Uh-oh.
once I let it out, I was like,
Hmm.
"Whoa,
Hmm.
uh-oh," and and I would just get enraged really quickly. And what I learned over time is that there's defensive anger and there's clean anger.
Hmm.
Clean anger is you've said something or done an action that is offensive to me, that is actually, it's like if you're abusing me and I don't get angry,
Hmm.
that's not right. I have a right to be angry at somebody who's abusing me. So the anger then again is that no, it's that, setting that boundary. But defend, and that's clean, and it's not about aggression. You can actually be very effective if you stay calm, if you have your feet on the ground and you're really clear and you speak with authority, you can communicate anger in a very effective way that's not
Hmm.
aggressive at all. But then there's defensive anger. And for me, it's when I feel powerless. If I feel powerless, and
Yeah.
technology will do that. I'm usually pretty good, but I was on tech support with a major company I could name if you ask, for 3 hours this week, and by the third hour I was just like, "Ah." But it's because I felt powerless.
Hmm.
So that kind of sense of, or we also get angry to cover up more vulnerable feelings like shame and grief because it's a more outward moving energy.
Why is life richer when you feel it?
Ah, that's my motto. I find that the more I have felt my full range of emotions, the more joy I experience. The more I'm able to cope with challenges, the more I'm able to express myself, to create things like writing my book and creating my course, to have a good marriage. No one in
Hmm.
my family had a good marriage. I was
Wow.
45 when I got married. It took a while for me to figure out how to have a kind of marriage I had never witnessed. So for me, it's just my life is richer when I feel it. And what I've seen with clients is that they have more authority, they have more confidence and more of a sense of self-esteem and more trust in themselves, so that they can make decisions and move forward. And sometimes they get rewarded
Hmm.
quite handsomely for that ability to speak up and to express themselves. And so their life gets financially richer as well as richer in other ways.
So, Joy, on the podcast, we talk a lot about discipline. I lost a lot of weight. People always ask me, how'd you lose it all? Like there's some magic bullet or something. And I just say discipline. The doctor said I exploded up to
Mhm.
340 pounds building a business. And she said, if you don't lose your weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So that's all I needed to hear. And I just reversed
Mhm.
everything and, lost 140 pounds
Yeah.
and discipline and focus is all it took. Uh, is
Yeah.
discipline a portion? Is it does it complement? Is it part of emotions at all?
I was thinking about that because I watched your video, and I
Uh-oh.
was checking you out, and I realized
Hmm,
absolutely, and I hadn't really thought of it in those
hmm,
terms. So thank you for that, because the discipline is not what people think about, I think, in this arena of emotion. The discipline is to be willing to
mm,
be present with whatever emotion is going on and to not
hmm,
try to fix it, but to learn from it, to listen to it, and then to utilize the information and to be, because I don't know if there's any other way to say it. It's just that's the discipline, is to be
hmm,
discerning in how you are when somebody says something and you get that spark, and you either want to say something back or you want to leave the room, get away from them, or go have a drink or go eat something, to deal with that energy that's happening in your body. And so the discipline is to stay present. And then I teach a lot of tools about how to calm your body. Because if you calm your body, you send a message to the brain that says, I'm safe, I'm okay. And then you can have more of your own intelligence, your innate intelligence and creativity in terms of understanding what it is that you're experiencing and what you want to do with that information. So it's a very interpersonal discipline that
What a
happens.
wonderful perspective on discipline. I've never heard that. That's fantastic. It's discerning. You're there. You're staying present. That's wonderful. That's wonderful how you were able to pull that together. I get a lot of pushback. I shouldn't say a lot, but enough where many people have almost a militant view of discipline. And by the way, I don't say discipline is the answer to everything. I'm just saying
Mhm.
that's a tool that I use to do it, and I use it sparingly in different
Yeah,
areas now. I don't mean to be the disciplinarian king, but the way you wrapped it around as if it's self-discipline, and it makes you more focused and direct in your emotions to be present. That's wonderful.
yeah. Yes, and it's worked with me
Mm,
with my physical health. I had a experience 2 years ago now where I knew I didn't feel good. Just something was
mm.
off. And I had some tests done and found out I have a hereditary thing that makes me, I like to say this so people, if you have a little groove in your earlobe, it's called Frank's sign. I read a little thing in a magazine. It talked about Frank's sign, and I just have this little groove that goes in my earlobe, and I looked it up. You have a
Hmm.
higher risk of stroke. Now my dad died of a stroke. So I went to the doctor and I got this test, and it's like she says, "Yeah, well, you can't really change that number, and there's things you can do to take care of yourself." And she put me on a statin, which made me crazy.
Mm.
I had to get off of it. So I worked with a health coach who was extremely knowledgeable. And I had that discipline. I said, I was committed because what you were doing was you were
Yeah.
committed. You had a motivation. And I want to live to be very, I have a
Mm.
lot of living still to do. And so I changed my eating way. I exercise now every morning. I lost 25 pounds. My number came down. My
Wonderful.
cholesterol came down. I don't need no statins. I felt my energy came up and I just felt so much better. But I made a real commitment and I stuck to it of that. How am I going to be caring for myself? Because I want to live a very long
And
time.
you were gracious on one of your
So,
videos. It was on your birthday, and you shared your age, and you look wonderful. And it's very,
thank
very
you.
nice. And you open yourself up like that, and it's nice to see. Your energy is there. You're very confident in the way you speak and the way you present, but never arrogant. Some people kind of cross that line. Yeah,
Oh,
I
thank
really
you.
enjoy that, and
Thank you.
perhaps it's because your emotions are in check.
I think it's because they're
Mm,
in flow, and I mean, I'll say it here since you brought it
yes.
up. I'm 73. And I mean, I even shock myself sometimes. I remember my mother saying, "I
Mm,
don't feel as old as I am," and it's like, okay, yeah. So that's I think that's
yes, you
I'm
should
a
be.
little proud of that. Whereas
Good.
we used to want to hide that, but it's because of I attribute it a lot to this gift of
Mm.
the emotions, the emotional flow keeps the energy going.
Joy Seldon, what motivates you?
Ah, it used to
Mm,
be my pain in when I was young, and I was so unhappy, and I somehow I don't know was different than my siblings and the rest of my family. I always felt like I was an outsider. I didn't feel like I really belonged anywhere. But there was something that kept driving me to try to understand more and to be done with my pain. And now my motivation is I want other people to be free of their
mm.
emotional pain because it's not required. We will have it. I mean, I don't
Mm,
have my days are not perfect. I have my upsets and I have my days where I feel like, oh, nothing's working and we're not meant to be on an even keel or just going up, 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 up in life. It's like life is
mm,
like a wave. It's up and down. But that wave, the quality of that can get richer and more fulfilling. I never cared about happiness as much as I
hmm,
cared about fulfillment. I somehow wanted to be fulfilled. And so that's still there, that sense of fulfillment of wanting to experience the most of myself that I can. Putting it out in the world is where I somehow get a little like,
mm.
oh, will other people really want this or see this? But now I speak up more and more because I just want other people to know that they don't have to suffer. They might feel pain, they might be uncomfortable, but they don't have to suffer through
What
life.
a wonderful sentiment. How do you measure success?
Oh, I try not to look at my bank account to measure it, because, but because sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. So I try to think more in terms of, have I had a creative idea
Mm,
that I've taken action on or not? And I also look at success in terms of what's happened with my clients and my students. Are they achieving what they want? Um, are they living a happier life? And my greatest testimonial was like, not only am I happier and more fulfilled at work, but I am in
mm.
my personal life as well. So,
Wonderful. Absolute pleasure talking with you. I was really excited when you accepted this and enjoyed learning about you and polling my friends and seeing what the results are. How can we get in touch with you, Joy?
Uh, if someone would like just to learn more about this, to have a conversation, to talk about whatever issues are going on with them or see what possibilities, because I have an online course called Emotions at Work. I have my book, I have private coaching, and I can do speaking and all kinds of things. Just go to joytotherescue.com. That's JOIE to therescue.com. And that goes straight to my calendar, and you can book a half-hour complimentary consultation. Otherwise, I have a website or on LinkedIn, Joie Seldon. And again, it's JOIE now,
Mm.
as in Joie de Vivre, having changed the
Very
spelling.
good. Well, thank you so much for your time. Maybe one day we'll have a cup of coffee together with your husband and we'll have a session where we all sit and listen to each other.
That would be great. I've really enjoyed this. I appreciate your questions very much. It's
Thank
been
you so
really
much. You be
enjoyable.
well. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information. The video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.